Peter Kuznick is Professor of History and Director of the Nuclear Studies Institute at American University from Washington, D.C. He's now joining us on the program. Professor Kuznick, thank you very much for making time for us and welcome. What do you make of NATO's worry that it is going to be a tough third winter for Ukraine?
The Russians have been systematically destroying Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Some reports say 80% has been destroyed. So this is going to be a very cold, difficult winter for Ukraine. The fighting will slow down immensely on the battlefield. However, the Ukrainian people are going to suffer terribly this winter.
Professor Kuznick, there are some leaders from the Baltic nations who are claiming that Ukraine has become weaker in the battlefield and therefore should now seriously consider the lines of peace with Russia, basically saying President Zelensky should maximize on the third Ukraine Southeast Europe summit that is currently going on. Your thoughts?
It looks like the Ukrainian front is pretty much collapsing now. The Russians have taken the important city of Vuhledar, which means that it's going to be very difficult for the Ukrainians to supply their troops to the east in the Donbass and also to maintain their efforts in the west. Now the next big target is going to be Pokrovsk. When the Russians take Pokrovsk, they've got the entirety of Donetsk. And so on the battlefield sense, this is very difficult. Zelensky had gambled with the invasion of Kursk, hoping that that would force the Russians to withdraw troops from the Donbass in order to combat the Ukrainians in Kursk. But that didn't happen, or it happened to a very small degree. And so now those troops are pretty much isolated in Kursk, and that gambit failed. He also came to the U.S. and to the world with his peace plan, but that has seemed to go nowhere also. So the military failure on the battlefield, combined with the overall, for example, this meeting in Ramstein that Zelensky was placing so much hope on, Biden has now pulled out, and the meeting might be entirely canceled. If not, they're not going to be able to produce the weapons that Zelensky was counting on. So I think the situation is growing increasingly dire. Putin has said he is willing to return to the Turkish agreement from 2022.
Right.
The tragedy is that if we end up there, we could have started there 2.5 years ago and saved hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian lives, Russian lives, treasure, wealth.
Professor, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this as we end this conversation, and very quickly from you, because there are critics who are saying that Ukraine is slowly but steadily losing the war. What do you say? Very quickly.
I think that's true. The Russians have them outmanned, outgunned, and at this point out-strategized. And the West is still maintaining its unity, but we see with Orban and Fico and others, there's a big increasing push for negotiation. This war is going to end at the negotiating table. Let's get there quicker before more people are killed, more economy destroyed, more land destroyed, more environment destroyed.
Okay.
This is a madness. And the threat of nuclear war still lingers if Biden gives permission to Zelensky to use those advanced missiles to strike deep inside of Russia. There is no benefit to continuing this war.
All right, I've been talking to Professor Peter Kuznick, who's a professor of history and director of the Nuclear Studies Institute at American University. Thank you very much, Professor, for all your insights and for talking to us today.
My pleasure.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.